Quelle s'est made? Right, can you take a seat, please? We're going to have to start fairly promptly as the event is live streamed. Can you please take a seat? I know we're all very excited. No, hang on a minute. Yep. No, we're not on countdown just yet. Are we all sitting down? Are we all good? We all got seats? Nice and cozy. Excellent. Yep, countdown. Right, good evening everybody. Thank you very much for being with us today on this fantastic day in London as well. Beautiful sunshine to greet us today. So excited also to be back here at the FDF. Thank you very much for hosting us. Last time we were here was back in December 2018, which was another Binsted lecture with Michel Perchenok telling us all about the mission to Mars. So we're back here and for the Binsted lecture 2024. Some of you might wonder why it's called Binsted. Binsted is in a memory of Raymond Horatio Binsted, who set up the IFT British section back in 1939, at the same time the IFT was actually created, so together. And Raymond passed away, and Adrian, his son, would have been with us, but, so he's with us probably watching the live streaming at the moment. Hi, Adrian. But we are lucky tonight to have Mark, his grandson, so thank you very much for being with us and representing this great dynasty and the impact you've had through the food trade review and the Green Journal as we know it. So thank you very much. Yeah. So today it's the 2024. So let's have a look at the program, the feast. I'm going to start introducing you to the program. So we're doing this just now. And before I go into the details, I wanted to introduce you to our host. Thank you very much, Kate, for hosting us. Do you want to...
Thanks, Bertram, and it really is a pleasure to be able to welcome you all to the FDF offices to host the 2024 Binsted lecture. So I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at FDF. I also chair the Special Interest Group for Food Science and Nutrition at IFST. So I'm not going to touch on the lecture because I know that Bertram is going to go through the proper intros and the formal intro to Sean as well. But because I wanted to do a little bit of due diligence, and I wasn't honestly that sure who IFT were, so I had to Google a bit, which is a bit shameful. But nonetheless, I did that, and I went to their website, and something really struck me last night as I was looking at that. So in the mission statement for IFT, it sets out a vision of a world where science and innovation are connected and universally accepted as essential to improving food for everyone. And I think sometimes in our day-to-day jobs and distractions, and whether that's audits in your factory or politics or media, it can be really easy to sort of forget that very simple statement that I think everyone in this room would sign up to, and you have probably spent most of your careers trying to achieve. And that's how do we bring the best of science and innovation to bear to improve the food and have access to great quality food for everybody. So Sean, I am very much looking forward to hearing your lecture, and to everybody else. I hope I managed to chat to many of you after the lecture over a glass of wine. For people in the room, apologies to those of you online, I have to do a little bit of housekeeping. So if you haven't already found them, toilets are through the first door and to the left. There are no scheduled fire alarms. If there is a fire alarm, some FDF staff will magically appear in very bright tabards. I suggest you follow them. But as a handy hint, there are stairs just by the lifts that you came up in. And finally, this event is being filmed tonight, and there will be a cameraman as well taking pictures. So if you don't want to be in a picture or on a film, then if you can just let any of the FDF staff or the IFST staff, you'll notice we have different badges to the rest of you. If you let us know, then we can make sure that you're not involved in the pictures. And once again, welcome very much, and I will hand you back across to Bertie.
Thank you very much, Kate. And it reminded me that this event is a great collaboration between the IFT British section, IFST, and it's a special occasion as well for IFST, and we will see that in a bit, in the special 60 birthday party. And the FDF for your support, and also Camden BRI. But the IFT British section, I think we've got quite a few of our section members here. Could you just stand up to be recognised, please? Thank you. So if you want to find out anything about the IFT British section and what we're up to, please talk to one of our great members here. Thank you. Right, so what we're going to do this evening. So in a bit we will have Sean for the Binsted lecture. And after that, we will have a Q&A session. So while Sean is speaking, please think about some great questions to ask him. I'm sure we've got some already prepared. And for people who are being live streamed, because this program is being live streamed on a global scale, and also in 5 different locations across the UK, thank you to the IFST regional offices for this. You can post your questions on your YouTube channel, I think, yes, and they are magically appearing on Rihanna's phone. And Rihanna's got a microphone here, so you'll be able to relay the questions. Thank you so much. So think also about some great questions for Sean. After that, so we will have, that's going to last about an hour, and then we're going to have the 60th Diamond Jubilee celebration with our friends from IFST, where we've got the president of IFST here, Sterling, and the IFST Chief Executive, Tim. You're over there. So you'll be up here with us in a bit. Looking forward to that. And then we'll finish off about 8 for some drug reception and networking, and we have to be out by 9, so being kicked out by 9 o'clock. So that's the program for tonight. Now then, so we're coming to the pièce de résistance here, the lecture from Sean. And I just going to say a few words about Sean, some notes. Sean is Cargill's Global Vice President of Food Safety, Quality and Regulatory, with a career spanning more than 20 years or 50. Looking good on it, yes. 20 years in the global food and beverage industry, including the Coca-Cola company, obviously Cargill, Land O'Lakes, and a little spell in General Mills, I think, as well. Yeah. So Sean has an intimate knowledge of the science and standards that make food safe, and the strategies to ensure the quality of supply chains that feed our world. That's good words there. Sean's passion for food safety and quality extends beyond Cargill. He's the incoming president, as we know, of the Institute of Food Technologies, IFT, and he sits on the advisory board of many organizations, including the Center for Food Safety, UGA, the Center for Food Integrity, CFI, Partnership for Food Safety Education, which does some great work with consumers. That's a fantastic organization. The Food Fraud Think Tank, MSU, and the IFT Global Food Traceability Center. I was also very interested in seeing Sean's education, because we're all interested in sort of career path that people take. Be interested to know that Sean has a BS in bacteriology from University of Wisconsin-Madison, an MS in food science and nutrition from University of Minnesota, and that's all rounded off by an MBA from Emory University. So a good range of education there. So we're looking forward to that. What has contributed to to you. So anyway, with further ado, Sean, the floor is yours. I'm looking forward to your presentation here. And please, guys, think of some questions for Sean.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much to our host, Kate. Thank you very much for the kind intro and for hosting this beautiful space. I heard during the day the view is quite lovely. And thank you, Bertrand, for the kind introduction. Thank you to IFT for bringing me here, and to both the British section and to IFTS for hosting and being a part of this. I do have a degree in microbiology, actually bacteriology, which, if you stick to that discipline, it ends up being very much a laboratory-focused discipline. And believe me, nobody wants to see me anywhere near the laboratory these days. It's been a while since I've had to pipette or test for any microbes, but that is the heart and soul of my educational background, as Bertrand said. It's a pleasure to be here. I flew in this morning, kind of a quick turnaround here today. The term we use for how I'm feeling right now in the States is jet lagged. The term that I've heard that you here in England and the UK use to describe how I'm feeling right now is shattered. So I like shattered. That's I'm going to go with that. I'm not feeling quite shattered, but I will ask you to go easy on me on the Q&A session here, because I'm on a steady stream of a quick nap and some caffeine. So. No, thank you for including me in this Binsted lecture, Future-Proofing the Food System. The future is incredibly important, as we all know. I had the pleasure of spending 2/3 of a day at Disney World this week with my young children, and flew directly from Orlando here. And you only have to spend a few minutes with a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old to understand just how important and how critical it is that we plan and we think about the future. For their smiling faces, and so that their children and grandchildren can enjoy not only Disney World, but also many of the nutritious, delicious, sustainable foods that we work on every single day here. I do work for Cargill, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been at Cargill for 7 years. I lead their global food safety, quality, regulatory affairs team, as Bertrand said. It's a team of about 5,000 people worldwide. It's a big organization. That includes everybody from myself all the way out into the third shift laboratory technician in our Manchester facility, for example. So it's a big team. It's a wonderful team. I am very, very privileged to get to work with them every single day. Michael Ansong is here. Michael, raise your hand for us in the back. Michael works for me at Cargill. He's a wonderful contributor to our efforts. Let's jump to the next slide here. Many of you may know my friend and colleague, Chris Downs, who was the former president of IFT. And, I have the power to control the slides. My gosh, it's wow. Oh, the power. Many of you know Chris Downs. He was the previous president of IFT. He, in addition to being the immediate past president, he's also the director. I had to check my notes on this one. The director of the Food and Beverage Accelerator Trailblazer Program. The Food and Beverage Accelerator Trailblazer Program, funded by the Australian government, Department of Education, and hosted by the University of Queensland. Well, the Australian government came out with a report, a seminal report, just several months ago that Chris Downs shared with us on the board and at IFT. And it highlighted 7 global megatrends that are going to be driving, impacting, and changing the world in which we live in. Chris and I reflected on these. We love these global megatrends. You don't have to squint too hard to see food represented in many of these. And what I take away from these 7 global megatrends is actually going to the message I'd like you all to take away from this evening's talk, which is the future is going to be a really difficult place for people who don't like change, okay? And number 2, the future is going to be a really difficult place for people who can't or won't collaborate with individuals outside of their container, okay? My container, as I shared with you, is bacteriology, okay? For the microbiologists out there, we have got to reach out, collaborate, cooperate, work with, network with, get to know, understand other disciplines, leaders who are driving other perspectives in the food system. If we're going to be successful, if we're going to be able to manage any of these global mega trends. knowing that these megatrends are not only ever present, but also changing within the trend itself. I mean, you can go down here and just think about the changing climate. And just that as a topic is probably the marquee topic of hundreds of conferences occurring throughout the world in 2024. And the amount of context, the amount of change, the amount of collaboration needed just for that bullet, let alone between these bullets, is absolutely fascinating and can be quite overwhelming for somebody who doesn't like to collaborate, doesn't like to drive or be a part of an impressive and positive change. So that's my message for this slide. You'll hear that come up as a theme and a trend as itself as I go through this evening's talk. Before I share more about future-proofing the global food system, just a few details about IFT. Okay, IFT is an organization I've been a part of since I was a student back in more than 50 years ago, I guess. Many of you in the room today know IFT very, very well, and you are proud members of the IFT British section, so thank you very much for being here. For those of you who are section volunteers, could I just take a quick moment to recognize you? If you're a volunteer, I know I met some of you already during our brief social minute here, but if you're a volunteer in the British section of IFT, could you please stand up so we could recognize you? Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work and for your partnership with IFST. That in itself is a great form of collaboration between two extremely legendary organizations here in London, England, in the food space. The thing that I absolutely love about IFT is that it's a purpose, values, and mission-driven organization. Okay, the purpose of IFT is reflected here in this vision statement: a world where science and innovation are connected and universally accepted as essential for everyone, to improving food for everyone. And our vision is where we're headed, but our mission gives us the focus for where we are right now, connecting global food system communities to promote and advance the science of food and the application of such. Connecting, right? That's such an incredibly important word when you think about those mega trends that I just shared with you. Mission clearly states who we are, what we're trying to do, what we're willing to do, what we're working on as an organization, and our core values over here on the right. Community, integrity, passion, progress, respect, and inclusion guide and inspire and help inform many of the difficult decisions we have to make as an IFT organization. So who are the individuals that make up IFT? Just for a quick refresher, for those of you who know this extremely well, and for those of you who don't, this is a fascinating slide. Over 12,000 members worldwide. 12,000 members worldwide. It's a very, very large organization representing over 90 countries. Right? The essence of IFT is, the perspectives and the context and the input from 12,000 members in 90 countries, representing over 3,000 different companies with different approaches and different ideas. 700 different colleges and universities as we dip into the academic side. What a wonderful place to pull one of those mega trends out and say, what are we going to do about this in the food space, right? 700 colleges and universities partnered up with 3,000 companies from over 90 different countries is going to have a better outcome than one person or one group or one entity alone. The community works in industry, as I represent and many of you represent here in the audience, academia, government, regulatory environments. This is a part of this I love. Every single sort of stage in individuals' careers. You go to IFT first meeting in Chicago, or you attend a section meeting like this one, and you will no doubt meet students and individuals who are days away from retiring. And that is just what an opportunity to get, as a student once, we all were, what a great opportunity to talk to somebody who has been there, done that over 30, 40, 50 years of their career. 50 years of their career. IFT includes almost every single role, every single discipline from within the food system, right? We're not just microbiologists. We're not just sensory scientists. We're sustainability leaders. We're supply chain leaders. We're educators. We're managers of people, right? We're students. We're mums and dads. And this sense of community is what I believe is the competitive advantage, what I believe is the core competence of what IFT represents today in the food system, is the fact that it's every aspect of somebody's career, from young to old, every part of the food system, professors and leaders in companies, and government leaders, all coming together around one of these trends that we're currently addressing. The future is really here. I mean, the future is here. My CEO said once that the pace of change will never be slower than it is today. The pace of change will never be slower than it is today. And how true is that, right? Every single day it seems like there's more and more change coming our way. And we need each other. We need each other to be able to manage through this. I was having a conversation earlier about sustainability in the food supply chain. Right? How do we do this better? How do we break some of the behaviors and the norms and the culture that got us here to a relatively unsustainable food system to one that is more sustainable moving forward? How do we do that exactly? IFT has a critical role to play in that because IFT represents so many different perspectives on that topic. I pulled 4 trends. Out of those mega trends, I pulled 4 trends for this year that IFT is seeing, right? We got with the IFT Knowledge Insights and the staff, and we pulled 4 that we're seeing really pop in the food space that I hoped that we could share with you as we usher in this new year and this milestone year for 60 years for IFST, right? This is 2024 is a really important year. There's some trends going on right now that impact the dialogue and is impacting decisions IFT is making on where we focus our efforts, where we put our energy, where we invest resources, where we want to have conversations at this year's first meeting, during webinars, during section meetings like this that I'll be sharing with you next. The first one, the farm to fork strategy. The farm to fork strategy, and maybe that's sort of designed to be farm to fork strategy, lack of a better word, strategy, but the farm to fork theme, I would almost call it. Right? But companies are working on developing every component of the food ecosystem in an interconnected, in a sort of end-to-end way. From the COP28, which was driven by FAO and the World Food Forum, the U.S. Farm Bill, the National Strategy on Hunger, Nutrition, Health, and other proposed policies, commitments, investments in food systems, approach to seek and improve food security, nutrition, sustainability, food safety, et cetera, across the farm to fork lens. One of the big things that's come up in my space at Cargill is this piece of waste reduction, right? Their food waste is a really significant lever that can be pulled to help with a lot of this farm to fork strategy. Waste on the farm is significant. Waste at the table is significant. But only if we approach this farm to fork, the entire picture will we be able to recognize the value that this could have for today's food system. We expect, at least in the US, we expect to see growing regulatory interest in this. USDA, FDA, and EPA recently released a draft strategy to prevent the loss and waste of food by ensuring an increase in recycling of organic materials, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, of course, helping households understand, get visibility into how much their food waste is actually costing them. This is something that I think is a really great idea. At least in my household, I don't have visibility to how much money I spend on food that goes to waste. And that's such a simple idea that I think could really transform this conversation. But it's going to take more than a microbiologist to get there. It's going to take people with MBAs and finance degrees and interested in sustainability and interested in civil economics. It's going to take a community of scientists and leaders like IFT can represent to begin to address this opportunity. Food is medicine. This one gained some steam in the US in last year's historic White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. This one really was front and center for several communications coming out of our leadership in the US. There's a critical intersection of food and health, and it's quickly moving beyond theory and into application. Right? You just have to walk the store shelves, and you see food as medicine coming up more and more. There's an entire section of my local grocery store at home in Minnesota that is committed to this. An entire section. Everything from drops to teas to tablets to bread that has all types of medicinal, proposed and marketed medicinal benefits. But that's an interesting point, isn't it? Getting some science behind this idea of food as medicine is going to take all of us. It's going to take the IFT community to be able to understand this and actually put something forward that the consumer can trust and depend on and recognize as being beneficial to them, as opposed to just marketing speak, right? There are efforts right now being put forward to redefine medical professional nutritional education and to establish the health insurance connections and pilot programs for produce prescriptions and medically tailored meals. Medically tailored meals. It's a fascinating development, and the growth on this one is really going to be interesting to watch moving forward. It really is a movement. I don't know if I've seen a Netflix documentary on it quite yet, but I think it's coming. The third trend in food that I pulled for you, this one, of course, is near and dear to my heart, and I would appreciate any questions on this in the Q&A. Give me a softball. But really, we need, as the slide says, we need a transformative strategy and system here. There is an incredible amount of developing interest in this as there's a convergence of consumer interest, chasing zero, right? The average consumer has a very difficult time understanding that the dose makes the poison. The dose makes the poison, right? Any lead whatsoever in my apple, in my chocolate, is poison. So zero. So this convergence of chasing zero with increased regulatory interest in this, representing the consumers, converging with more accurate, more sensitive, more cost-effective, more available analytical methods and analytical standards and analytical instruments are creating this sort of perfect storm. Okay? I lived this one dearly with some ethylene oxide challenges that we had in our business several years ago, right? And it was really tiny, almost non-detect levels of ethylene oxide in certain foodstuffs that created one of the biggest recall management challenges of my career, my 50-year-old career. I'm not going to let that go, Bertrand. I'm the guy that when somebody puts a big button in front of you and says, "Do not push." PFAS and other chemicals that can now be tested for, can now be quantified. Consumers are learning more and more about this. Somebody made me aware of this the other day. I've yet to verify it for myself, but somebody told me there's an app you can get on your phone with a device that you connect to your phone that can actually begin to analyze the content of certain food. Right? This is the convergence of analytical methods, consumer interest, regulatory pressure. So this food safety bit, right? I think we continue to be challenged with the biological and the microbial challenges of food safety. That's not going away, but we've really hit sort of a solid baseline where the huge E. coli 157H7 outbreaks, the huge Campylobacter outbreaks are, I think, globally being fairly well managed. There's still huge opportunity there, don't get me wrong. But we're seeing a new baseline there. Salmonella, right? Norovirus. But what's really caught the attention of the regulatory bodies and the consumer are chemical contaminants. And this is something that, along with the analytical methods, is going to be a huge trend. I'm sure third-party testing laboratories are doing cartwheels with this trend, because this will fuel a lot of business for them moving forward. And maybe it should. Maybe it should. I'm not here saying that that's a bad thing. But being aware of this and developing a strategy as an organization, as a company, developing a strategy to teach this space to our students, developing a strategy to share with regulators, is something that we believe IFT may be able to play a role in because of that interconnectedness between the different disciplines on this particular space. You can't talk about the future without talking about AI, right? This is a trend that is omnipresent. We have yet at Cargill, we have yet to figure out exactly what this means and where we should use it and where we shouldn't. Like, I think AI, by the way, all technologies, depending on who you read and what podcasts you listen to and what trusted minds in this technology space you follow, all technology ends in AI. That's my chosen technology leaders have declared that, okay? All technological developments are going to end in AI, right? AI will be the last human innovation. Why do I say that? Because all innovations after that are going to be innovated by AI. Okay, so this thing has some incredible power if we can figure out how to harness it, how to leverage it, where to use it, where it can get us into trouble. And all of that is just really, really deeply important in order to allow this to have a positive impact on the food system. I can share with you that we're not tone deaf to this developing, the promises of this developing technology at IFT. We are exploring, like, what could this mean for IFT, for its members, for being an enabler for some of that connectivity that I just shared with you, the collaboration that I just shared with you, okay? So we believe that AI has an incredibly, how many organizations are actively using some AI tool today? Does anybody just show of hands? Curious. Yeah, okay, it'll be interesting to ask that question in 5 years. It'll be really interesting to ask that question in 5 years. Where we're using it in Cargill, just as a point of discussion, I'm anticipating a Q&A on that one maybe, so I'll beat you to it. Where we're using it is in our regulatory affairs space. Okay, where historically, Michael, you'll know this, right? Because you were a part of that team. Historically, if you want to know what's the legal limit for the levels of arsenic that we can allow in rice in Japan, right? One of my trusted regulatory affairs leaders, scientific leaders, could come back to us with that in maybe a couple of hours. And it'll be mostly right. Maybe not as thorough as we'd like, or maybe something close, or maybe it's changed in the last 3 weeks, but mostly right. Today, you can type that into an AI-driven search tool like ChatGPT or Pick Your Poison, and within seconds, you have paragraphs of up-to-date, accurate information on the levels of arsenic in rice allowed in Japan. Try it at the break. It's fascinating. It's just a party, huh? AI is here to stay. AI is, I think, could very well be the last human invention, and we better figure out where it can help and where it can hurt pretty quickly, because it's starting to outpace our ability to comprehend and wrap our minds around it. IFT is thinking deeply about this right now. I can share that with you, okay? And as I've said, this is one of the take-home messages, right? With all of these challenges, the mega trends, the 4 food trends that I just shared with you, there are a number of challenges that our global food system is facing today, and everyone can benefit when we work together to achieve positive outcomes, when we can achieve even a portion of that mission, vision, and purpose that I shared with you earlier, that IFT has highlighted. And there is a wonderful opportunity to work together within IFT. There's a wonderful opportunity to work together as a result of just connecting here at IFT. I've added several of you to my LinkedIn connections, right? We maybe would have never met if it weren't for the British section of IFT and IFST hosting us here today. So it's a wonderful opportunity to really drive some positive change in food. The challenges are endless, and I really believe that no one organization, no one discipline, no one element of any of that membership, no one professor at any one university is going to be able to solve this on their own. It's going to take all of us connecting, collaborating, cooperating with each other to do it. And IFT, I think, provides a great platform for doing that. Q&A. I'm sure the Q&A wire is just, we maybe broke the system. Has it melted down on us yet? I'm dying to hear some of the questions that came out of this.
I haven't received any on here yet.
Okay, maybe in the room. Yeah, good.
And we've got some on the other channel here as well.
Okay, Bertrand, yeah.
So if we let's just read that one and then we get one from the room. You mentioned that to survive. You hear okay? Yeah. You mentioned.
Do you want to?
Yeah. So you mentioned that to survive the future, you need to be able to change. If you can't cope with change, you're not going to survive as a business or as an individual. What other key skills and knowledge and behaviors we need to develop or have to be able to thrive in a new environment or that environment?
I love this question because it's a topic I grapple with at Cargill every single day, is how do I develop my leaders to be ready for the change, to drive the change that we know we need to be a part of. I'll start, there's three that I'll share with you. There's a lot more than three probably, but I'll start with three. One of them is a level of comfort, right? We all have to have a level of comfort for the data and the technology. And that's not that easy. We're working on something, I don't think this is that confidential. If it is, I'm sure I'll hear about it, Michael. But we're working on something within Cargill right now that's going to, at a minimum, sort of enable, I think, at a maximum, it could replace the way we do audits internally. Completely transform how we do internal audits in the quality food safety space. But in order to do that, you've got to have a level of comfort with what the data are telling you, and believe that the data can tell you something that even some of the pushback I got on this, even an auditor walking around a plant with their nose in a drain can't. And that, right? Think about that for a second. Half the room may come up to me afterwards at the reception and say, boots on the ground, you need a human being to audit a plant. Otherwise, and I'd say, do you? Or can we trust that the data are actually trying to tell us something? Let me give you an example. Data comfort. This is comfort with data. We mapped out how much money each of our Cargill facilities spends on pest control every year. We normalized that with something because, of course, big facilities are going to spend more on pest control than smaller facilities. So we normalize that in a certain way I'm not going to share with you. Okay? When you look at that normalized number of pest control spend per something, and you map it out across all Cargill facilities, it's really interesting. It shows you that there's some of our facilities that are spending a lot of money on pest control. A lot of money, like 25x the average. I wonder why. You know why. They either have a heck of a relationship with their pest control vendor, maybe, or they have a pest problem. What else is interesting is the other end of that chart. There are Cargill facilities that are spending less than 25x the average on pests. And I knew one of the QA managers at the facility that's on the lower end of that chart that I circled, and I called him up. I'm like, hey, yeah, here's what we did. I'm just curious. He goes, yeah, we don't have a pest problem here. And I said, Martin, do you want to know how pests work? You don't have a pest problem until you have a pest problem, right? We all know this just from living in an apartment or a house with mice. Right? Yeah, after a while, you just kind of set a mousetrap up and leave it there. So that's just trusting the data. I don't have to have an auditor walk through a plant and kick mousetraps for us to learn about the pest control program or the pest problem at that given facility. Now, that data point alone doesn't tell us everything. It doesn't tell us much, actually, but it does offer some insights. But you overlap that data with like 35 other sources of data, and you start to get a picture. Either we're going to go audit you tomorrow, or we actually think you're probably pretty good for a couple years. All right? And not only are we going to go audit you tomorrow, but we're going to go audit you tomorrow because of this, this, and this. The first time we piloted this, the QA manager at that site goes, how did you know? I'm like, we didn't. We trusted the data. But there are people within my own team, within my own organization pushing back on this concept because they didn't have the level of data comfort and technology comfort with replacing, changing a 250-year-old program of people walking around plants auditing with a clipboard. So that's one thing that I try to drive my leaders to drive and prepare for and be ready for the change coming. A second one are soft skills. Okay? I don't know about your guys, you all, your organizations. My organization is flattening. Why? Cost savings. Okay? Economic pressures, inflation, we are all dealing with it. So organizations are flattening. As organizations flatten, I'll connect the dots for you. As organizations flatten, you no longer have food safety in your control. What you have is a little bit of something going on, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this. So the ability for me to be able to sit down and have a conversation with my sustainability lead in a collaborative way is critical. Well, how do I sit down and have a conversation with my sustainability in a positive, constructive, approachable, maybe fun way? Soft skills. Right? My sustainability lead, when I send out an invite to say, hey, can we sit down and talk about waste reduction? She has to be like, heck yeah, let's meet in the coffee shop. Because she wants to meet with me. Right? So soft skills, your ability to just connect with someone. Right? In a little bit of humor. Tell a story. Right? Share a past experience with them so that they understand the relevance of where you're going with a certain challenge or a certain project. Right? So those soft skills are going to be super, super important. So comfort with data technology. So I'm glad I did not ask this question. Comfort with data and technology. And then the third thing is I just said the word, project. Project management, guys. This may sound like it's coming out of the right field. Project management skills are going to be really, really important moving forward. Because think about it. What did I just share with you? Who the heck is going to be a project manager for a project that pulls together microbiologists, sustainability geeks? I say that with all the love in my heart, right? Truly. HR, finance. We talked about civil economics and how much waste my home is costing me, food waste is costing my family. All right, to solve that, you're going to need an economist or a finance person. Who's going to be the project manager for that bunch? A good one, I hope. Right? So I believe that those are the three skills that to drive the change that we're talking about here, those are three skills. There's a lot more than three. But those are the three that I find in my business at Cargill and with IFT, those are the three skills I find we talk about the most, needing more development on. Did I buy some time for somebody to submit one? All right, good.
Is this working? Yes. What percentage of confidence has the Cargill regulatory rep in the room got today, knowing it can only improve equals a positive trend? Does that make sense?
Read it one more time.
What percentage of confidence has the Cargill rep in the room got today, knowing... Oh, sorry, I'm a bit confused. It literally just came through, I hadn't had a chance to read it. Right, okay, so we're talking about AI. We'll need checks and balances until confidence in the data resources is validated. but they're fascinated to learn it's already in use in some of the larger companies.
Yeah.
So what percentage of confidence has the Cargill representative in the room got today?
Yeah, I think I get it, right? So I shared the example of our regulatory team using ChatGPT, for example, the arsenic in Japanese rice. I think, I don't know, I'd be averaging averages if I gave you one number. So I don't know what that number will represent. I'd say like 50%. In certain very, very narrow and focused aspects, deep confidence. Like 95%, which is like trust but verify kind of thing. In other levels, close to zero, like literally close to zero. Cargill actually sent out a note. Michael, you remember getting this note saying, don't use ChatGPT because we don't know, we can't trust it yet. That sounds like zero to me. So I sent out a note to our IT team or our technology leadership team. I was like, hey, we're going to use it for this. And we'll be 95% trust but verify. And the organization felt good about using it for certain circumstances that are very narrowly defined. So on average, 50%, but that doesn't tell the story. The story is either zero or close to 100, depending on the application. Yeah.
Thank you. We've had one more as well. Oh, do you want to do it?
Take
One more?
from the room.
One from the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take one from the room. Can't give all the love to the online folks, right?
John.
Yeah, John.
Yes, Sean. Thank you, great presentation. You haven't mentioned ultra-processed food once, and we're developing a very unhealthy obsession with the topic here in the UK. But what I was reflecting on when you mentioned some of the megatrends like climate change adaptation and responding to climate change, net carbon, zero carbon policy, decarbonisation, etc., every actor is going to have to start doing things that are very different. How are you going to manage consumers in this? Because they're going to have to accept really some radical changes in diet, in technology, in the choices that are available to them.
Yeah, that's a big idea, John. I totally agree, and that's why I chose to work at Cargill, where we're primarily B2B, so I don't have to. No, I'm just. Sidestep that one. No, we do have a lot of product on shelves at Cargill worldwide. I think it's a fascinating idea, right? Because you think about, let's just think about sustainable food, right? Increasing the sustainability of food is probably going to move the costs as well. Not always up, by the way, but the cost structure is going to change of food. What we know as cheap food today may be more expensive tomorrow, and vice versa. And you get into this concept of like willingness to pay. Is the consumer willing to pay for some of these innovations and developments, et cetera? And the answer is maybe, maybe not, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think, and there's a good tension there. I mean, there's one side of the argument that I think says if there's no willingness to pay, it's not sustainable. It's not going to work. But then there's the other side of the argument that says but maybe companies like Cargill, maybe member companies of IFT can pull together and drive that change to the point that there's economies of scale, to the point that there doesn't have to be a willingness to pay because the cost has come down to a point where it's actually more sustained. So all of that is probably 1% of where you're going with that question. I mean, it's just such an important piece. And I think it's going to be topic by topic. I think that it's not a straight line, by the way. Like consumers' interest in this stuff today, tomorrow. Straight line? Probably not. Right? I think it looks like this, based on what we're talking about. We've seen a great deal of consumer interest in some of our innovations at Cargill over the last couple of years. We've seen other things where we thought, wow, this will really move the needle. Nobody cares. So it's unpredictable. The consumer is unpredictable, sometimes irrational. Sometimes it needs to be led, right? We know more about food than the average consumer. I think we have a responsibility to lead them to a better tomorrow. And what that looks like, I think, is going to depend on where in the world you are, who the target consumer is, the regulatory pressures that have come and gone, the recalls that have come and gone. Right? The media will play a huge role in all this. That's something we haven't talked about either. We didn't talk about the consumer. We didn't talk about the media, right? The tail wags the dog on a lot of this stuff. So I love the question. I don't have a great answer for you except for, like, when you want to go there, call me because I want to be at the table. I think it's a really important one. And I didn't avoid it deliberately. I wanted 4. It's easy to remember. But thank you, John, for the question. Yeah.
Any questions? Yeah. Okay. Keston?
Yeah, Keston.
Yeah, great talk. But I'd like to just ask a question around food fraud and authenticity. So obviously the technology is continuing to develop at a rapid rate of knots in many areas, and I guess there's a little crossover here with IFT and with Cargill, where obviously food fraud is prevalent out there in the world for many reasons. Where do you think technology will lead to solving this problem? Yeah. But also intersect with obviously those that are committing food fraud are obviously getting more technologically advanced as well. Yeah. So interested to get your thoughts.
Yeah. If I were to add another element to this year's trends, 2024, not the big mega trends, 5-year, 10-year trends, but this year's trends, it would be that one. This is like the hottest thing going right now. We're seeing companies approach Cargill, and I know IFT's heard about some of this as well as part of the Traceability Center, but there's 2 ways to approach it. There's 2 pieces to this, I think, is the way to think about it. There's how do we actually trace this food, right? How do we know that that food came from there and that it is that food? How do we know this is Chilean sea bass, right? And then there's like, what platform are we going to put all of this data on so that industry members, maybe even consumers, although I'm not quite there yet, but there's some visibility and transparency to those data. So those are the kind of the 2 things going on. The Global Food Traceability Center that IFT leads has done a wonderful job of the latter. Kind of this like, what platform should we use to be able to enable the industry to provide more traceable seafood, right? More traceable sea bass. The second part is like, how do you, I'll paint this picture with a brief story. Does anybody know, in like a 5-pound pack of ground beef, how many animals, individual animals, go into 5 pounds of ground beef in one of our facilities? These are big beef facilities. Does anybody have a guess? You shout it out. 3, 20, 25, over 300. Okay, so how do you, right? How do you do that? Right? That's the question that I think you're asking, Keston. There's a couple different things that we've seen pop up. One is like DNA enabled. So there's a couple firms out there looking at different sort of unique forms of yeast that have a very, very unique and specific DNA fingerprint in the yeast. And you introduce this yeast into the food stuff. I think one of the pilots they did, they sprayed this yeast on apples. And you can tell then, you can pick up an apple at your Tesco, in October, and you can be like, beep, oh, this apple came from Austria, or whatever, okay? That's one, so DNA enabled, whether it's yeast or some lactic or some other, or just the yeast itself, prions or whatever maybe. There's a bunch of different startups that are chasing that down. So DNA enabled, RNA enabled traceability. The other one that I've seen is chemical footprint, or chemical fingerprint. So based on, we'll stick with the apple. Based on the apple having this percentage of all these different compounds, we know that apples that look like that come from there. That's another one that has been brought to my attention. And there's a bunch of companies developing both angles on that. The best platform-based solution I've seen so far, GFTC is doing a great job of that. There will be more technologies coming up on the DNA chemical fingerprint side for sure. But yeah, I think 6 of these have hit my desk since January 1st. Like, this is a very, very hot idea for 2024 for sure. So thank you for the question. Yeah, food fraud is a growing concern, right? We've seen it a little bit in some of our oils, and I'm trying to think what other commodity we just had. We had one of these just the other day. I can't recall what it was. But oil is a big one, especially this expensive Italian extra virgin olive oil. Like, you can...
Are there any other questions in the room?
Thank you. My name's Stephen. I just had a question. When you talked about food as medicine, I think in the UK we've tried very hard to communicate to customers around energy and, you know, quality of food, like nutritional values of food, front of pack, traffic light labelling, and that has so many different communications and confusing. How do you think we would go around communicating to a customer like food as a medicine and the benefits of food for them?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's it. That's you perfectly described the challenge in front of us. I don't have, the only thing I know is that it seems like there's a massive opportunity to connect with and educate our marketing teams in our companies, right? If you walk, this one used to infuriate me. I used to work for the Coca-Cola company, okay? And the Coca-Cola company sweetens its Coca-Cola with whatever sweetener is locally available and cost effective that doesn't affect the taste of a Coke as we know it, okay? I'm not telling you anything confidential here. I don't know the secret formula. So, depending on where you go in the world, there's different sweeteners for Coke. In the US, most of the Coca-Cola, not all, but most of the Coca-Cola is sweetened with corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. Okay, the Coca-Cola company has been on a trail for as long as I can remember around trying to communicate to the consumer that high fructose corn syrup is safe to consume at normal quantities. And by the way, every little bit of data I've seen suggests that it is. You walk the grocery store aisle, and there is a ketchup company, not the big one, but other ones, that bigger than the brand itself says HFCS free. Like, that's a selling point. And you just go, can we get some of these food marketing people to come to IFT, sit around a table and be like, let's pull together on this thing, right? Let's not use HFCS as a potential selling point to move the needle 0.1% in the second quarter, because it just sends such a confusing signal to the consumer. We food companies, I think, confuse the consumer in this food as medicine space more than we do good, frankly. So I think that's a massive opportunity for the industry to pull together and understand that. We're going to need the help of academics. We're going to need the help of the regulators. I think it's an opportunity for a community that IFT can help us pull together, frankly. It's a great question. I don't have any other answers besides our own internal marketers have a huge role to play in that. Huge role. Thank you for the question. Love it. I think we're... A few more? Yeah, you want to take a few more? I'm on a roll.
Okay, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
My question is around food politics. I will give an example from cultivated meat. And what we had before the cultivated meat was biotechnology, that is GMOs. You know, when you see different research coming from different points, saying things that are extreme from each other, and these research are coming from scientists and experts that you could like say, these are authority. But then behind that research, you discover that it's funded by organizations or companies that have like interest. For instance, I read somewhere that the beef industry is actually fighting against cultivated meat and stuffs like that. So using the platform like IFT, where all the stakeholders come together, what is IFT doing to take away food politics from communicating the real fact about food to consumers and the general audience?
Christy, you want this one? I'll tell you, we've got I'll let Christy share this with you because this is near and dear to Christy's heart. IFT has done a really nice job of establishing itself in this space in the last 3-4 years, maybe?
Accelerated, for sure.
Yeah. You can, is it working?
I think when you're talking.
Okay, I'll pause. Christy, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Christy Tarantino Dean. I'm the CEO of IFT. And we have, I'll start before I go where Sham was going, is that I think in the U.S. at least, we have a challenge in that our country is not as the increase, or there's actually a decrease, I should say, in food research funding. So when you don't have the investment in food research, then you are seeing different organizations that may have an interest that are funding that research. So one of the things that we've been doing as an organization is really trying to educate our government on why it's important to increase food research funding, but not just agricultural funding, which is where a lot of the funding is at this point in time, but in the applied sciences, so that we can solve these challenges for the future. I don't know that we're anywhere close to solving what you're talking about in terms of bringing people together, but we're trying to educate a bit. You'll hear me talk as well in that we are doing a lot in terms of our media relations to really bring more scientific experts to consumer publications in the US and around the world, and I'll give you some numbers in a minute. But we are trying to get out and really talk about food science to policymakers, both at the local and international level. We did have a staff member at that White House conference who has a nutrition background, but has worked in the food industry to really bring that voice to the table, where food scientists don't always get a voice, certainly in policymaking in the United States. And we also have made great inroads with FAO in terms of bringing researchers and experts, and just in this last week had a conference call with FAO leadership around letting us bring our member researchers and that food science voice to conversations, so that as regulatory decisions are made and other policy decisions are made, that they include you at the table, because many times we're not at the table, particularly in the U.S. when it comes to dietary guidelines and things like that. There's very limited food science input in those things. So I think that's what you were getting at, right?
Yeah. Remarkable progress in that space. It's still a much needed space, especially in the U.S. where the regulatory pressure is so strong. And I would just say the takeaway message from today's talk is it's going to take multiple people representing different disciplines and different perspectives to weed through some of that research to understand what is it actually trying to tell us, right? No one professor is going to be able to do that for us. No one company is going to be able to do that for us. It's going to take several different perspectives on that research to understand what is the best path forward. How do we leverage that moving forward? So yeah, good. That's exactly where I was going, Christy. Bertrand? One more? One more, okay.
Should we train food students in systems thinking, both hard and soft?
Yes. Thank you. No. Yeah, one of the things that one of the roles I know IFT does this, but I've been playing this role representing Cargill as well, is just trying to influence some of the college university curricula with ideas like that, right? Project management is most likely not a part of a food science department's curriculum today, okay? Collaboration 101, okay, is probably not a part of what is, where I do see some food science departments moving the needles on the technology side. I have seen understanding data governance, data quality, data structure, right? Data scraping. There was one, I can't remember what university, it might have been Guelph or McGill or somebody in Canada, part of the Commonwealth, is teaching Python for data scraping in their food science department. I was like, baby steps, baby steps. But so we are seeing some of that, but I think there's a long way to go in understanding that, especially for like the subset of students coming through a program that want to go and join industry or join, the FDA or EFSA or one of these big groups, that's really, really, really important. It's really important. The Cargill interview process is soft skills. They assume you know your microbiology. They assume you know your microbiology. It's all soft skills, values and soft skills. So I think there is a gap there, and I know IFT is pushing on it. We at Cargill are pushing on it as well. So I think there's some movement there. It's a great question. Whoever asked it, thank you for that one. Okay.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertrand. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Sean. Time for celebrations. Tim, do you want to gallop here?
Thank you, Bertrand. Thank you, Sean. Wow, what a talk. I'm Tim McLaughlin, Chief Executive of IFST, and it's just so wonderful to be here this evening with FDF, with, how many acronyms can I get in one sentence, do you think? FDF, with IFT, with all our friends online, both here in the UK and indeed around the world. Thank you very much for the team streaming today. We are celebrating a birthday. We are celebrating our 60th birthday this year, 2024. And I'd like to share some of the things that we're going to be doing. And one of those is going to be looking back over the last 60 years at the difference that food science has made. And when we think of how we can feed people faster, we can feed more people, all the innovations. But when we think about future-proofing the system, I want to go back to one of the first things that Sean said, and that was taking your 10-year-old and 7-year-old to Disney. Future-proofing the system, the food system, any system, is about who's going to do it. And that's about inspiring the young people today to stay in food science tomorrow. So I think one of the biggest messages I'd like to give you is how can we inspire young people to choose science and work in food? That'll be a one-line that you're going to hear throughout our year. So as we look back, what's food science and food technology done for us in the last 60 years? There's many, many positive things. There's many things that could be thought of as, has that helped, has that hindered? The bottom line is, as Deming said, you don't need to change. Survival isn't mandatory. Now, if we don't keep changing, as Sean said, we're not going to have the next 60 years. And that's why we're focusing on encouraging young people to choose to study science, work in food. Can you say that for me? Study science, work in food. If I can get you to take that away with you, I'll be very happy. So some of the things we've been doing is thinking about how can we celebrate this year, and our members chose this logo from a different selection that we had as a way of marking some of our resources. And then also, we have on our website a tab that you can see there. It's quite small, but on the right-hand side, we have a Jubilee 60 tab. Just like when the Olympics come to the BBC website, you get the yellow tab at the end. Well, we have our Jubilee 60 tab, so please do visit that to see all the different activities we've got going on, which includes some of these events. So starting here this evening, delighted to be part of the Binsted lecture. And next week, we're going to be launching our apprenticeships portal. One thing that we found from talking to a lot of different young people and indeed people working in food science was when you're looking for a food science apprenticeship, there's no one place to go to think, make it easy for me. So we did some looking around and we found that the RAF website actually has the answer to the two questions that young people want, and that is, how much do I get paid, and where is it? And that's it, because if you can't answer that question quickly, they're gone. So we're going to be launching our portal, which gives access to the opportunities with a couple of clicks, and companies being able to add their data, indeed using scraping from other sources to make it always coming in and live. So we're looking forward to launching that in the next week or so, because it's National Apprenticeships Week next week. In February this year and in November, we have our launch pads, which are where we go to universities around the UK and across the 4 nations to actually help food science students choose which area of food science they might like to choose. And we invite our members to become and be mentors to tell their story. So they're sharing with the next generation their experience. And then we have a big event with IFE in London on the 25th of March. part of the conference. So please do come and join us for that. We thought many of the members of IFST and potential members are attending that event. So we've got the first joint Food Manufacturing Ingredients Awards, and we've had lots of applications for that. So please look out for the prizes. And also we're going to be having some other awards later in the year with IFST. And that's what the next point says. We really want to be marking this year and celebrating success. One thing we thought about was, do you remember Monty Python, Life of Brian? What have the Romans ever done for us? Yes? What's food science ever done for us? Let's celebrate it with some awards. So you'll see lots more news through the year of those coming to you. And then we'll be having our conference in the autumn, which will be bringing together those themes of looking back on the last 60 years, but looking forward to the next 60 years and who's going to do it. What was that line? Study science, work in food. Say it for me. Study science, work in food. That's what we need to inspire the next generation. So there's the details of the event on the 25th of March. Please put that in your diary. So that's a Monday. That's happening at SEL, the Food Innovation Past, Present and Future. Here's the Ingredients Awards that I mentioned. So we've been really pleased to be working with IFE on developing the content and the expertise and the technical side of those awards. And also we're working with ITN Business, on a program that's going to be broadcast in March, which is all about powering our nation. That really should say nations, shouldn't it? But that's going to be going out to 10 million people. So we're really pleased to be the credible voice of evidence-based science working on these projects. So that's just a small flavour of what we've coming up in IFST. But my one takeaway message was, let's inspire the next generation. Speaking of the next generation, we have a new president in the last year, so I'm going to be very pleased to hand over to Sterling. Thank you, Sterling.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sean. What a really thought-provoking presentation. I'm a bit nervous because, Bertrand, I have been in the food industry for 50 years. I'm celebrating it this year. When I was 15, I started working for Woolworths on the sweet counter, if you can remember Woolworths. Best job I ever had. It's all been downhill since then. Also, I'm a bit nervous, as you know, Sean. I don't claim to be the greatest food scientist, be clear. You know, I don't claim to be the greatest food technologist. I see some great ones here. But my claim to fame is I was the tallest food scientist in this country. And I think you've just taken that away from me. So I'm looking forward to going back to the States so I can reclaim my crown. I think you put some really important stuff out there for us to think about. To be honest with you, it reflects a lot of the things that people are saying in this country. I know a lot of the big CEOs from food manufacturing got together 6 months ago. They allowed me to join them. And in fact, we are a bit less optimistic than Americans. So we weren't calling them trends. We were calling them crises. And we were sitting there saying, look, here are 14 crises. Now, the ones you put down there are really important to us. And how can we respond to them? Wars, AI. But after all the debate for a whole day, when we actually said, well, which is the top one we should focus on? We can't do all 14. What really shocked me is that these people turned around and said talent. That's what they were worried about, is if we're going to solve these problems, we need to attract talent, and we're leeching it out of our industry. We've got 400,000 people working here. Is that right, Kate? Yeah. It's the biggest food manufacturing sector, but we're not attracting talent. And if we can't encourage these young people to join our industry, then we've got a real problem on our hands. I just noticed something. That's interesting. Sorry about the crutches, guys. I've already injured one person today. Sorry. Normally, if I get away with injuring 5 people, that's a good day for me. So please be very careful. I have to give a warning that if I fall, don't try to catch me, Kate. That's what the physiotherapist says, but no one has ever tried to catch me. What is interesting is if I fall, as Bertrand knows, I don't fall to the right. Never done that. But about 30 or 40 times I've fallen to the left. So I question your risk management skills, Sean. You're right in the danger area. So I thought it was a big theme that comes out for our industry is about change. I mean, that phrase has been used a lot. And Charles Darwin actually never said survival of the fittest. He's often misquoted. What he said was it's survival of those that can adapt. And I think that is the challenge for us as an industry, as food scientists and technologists. If we can adapt to this ever-changing world, then I think we can survive. If we don't adapt, and it is moving a lot quicker, it almost seems like we've got omni-crisis, doesn't it? You know, people have been around a bit longer. You used to get a crisis every 5 or so years. We had salmonella in eggs, didn't we? We had BSE. French stopped us exporting meat. I remember that, St. Bertrand. We haven't forgotten that. We had the horse meat scandal. And I think when you're in the industry, you can manage that because you've got time, you've got experience. But the fact now that I think you're right, there must be 14 realistic challenges we've got this year ahead. How do we manage so many? And I think that's the thought process we've got. It's not dealing with an individual crisis, but how do we manage all these crises and manage consumer confidence? So that's my reflection. I really, really enjoyed your talk. If we do photos, do we have to stand together? It's a very great pleasure to present, I think, a gift now. Is that right, Bertrand? To celebrate this great day and the working together of IFST and IFT.
I think we do need some photos, Sterling.
Oh, God. Don't do it to me, Sean. Can't you take a knee or something? Yeah, thank you very much. So, Sean, it's a great pleasure. Great presentation, very thought-provoking. I appreciated your hospitality when you came over in Chicago to see and share, especially quickly, ways of working. I thought was really useful for us, and we learnt a lot. But can I present you this on behalf of the Institute of Food Science and Technology? Great efforts. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's great to be with all of you again. As I was planning to come, I was reflecting on my first visit to IFST in the British section, which was 10 years ago. I was 5 weeks into my new role as the CEO of IFT, and this was my first visit externally. And it was at that visit that I learned about the great working relationship and partnership between IFST, our British section, and IFT, and understood how we would become and continue to be great partners. That meeting was the celebration of the 50th anniversary of IFST, and I knew that I had to be here 10 years later. The similarities between our organizations are evident when you read IFT's mission, as you saw earlier, to connect global food system communities to promote and advance the science of food. Our united purpose to ensure science and innovation are seen as essential to improving food for everyone continues to be a lofty task, especially given the challenges that the global food system faces. But I'm confident that organizations like IFST, IFT, our British section, can continue to bring people together, provide opportunities for collaboration and innovation to solve these challenges. This is the power of associations and diverse global communities connecting with each other to build upon research and expertise to find real solutions that impact local and global communities. As Sean talked about, and we've talked about many times already tonight, we recognize that the environment we all operate in has changed rapidly, even more so in the last 4 years. And we at IFT recognize that we must change rapidly as well. After extensive research, we've launched new tools such as a concierge service, a product development bootcamp, an AI bootcamp, and our first cohort now learning how to use these tools to impact everyday lives of our members and the customers that we serve. As Sean mentioned, we've just recently launched an enterprise traceability education suite so that our industry can learn quickly how to adapt to these changing tools and the changing demands. We actually have used AI to create a more interdisciplinary approach to our annual event and its content. We asked our members for the questions that they need to answer in their daily work. We received over 1,000 of those, and we used AI last year and for this year to distill those down into what the themes are for our conference and for these interdisciplinary conversations to really get to solutions more quickly and efficiently. As we heard from Tim, and like IFST, we also recognize that we must do more to make future generations aware of the opportunity to have significant impact through pursuing an education and career in the food sciences. In the United States, we know that beginning in 2026, the number of college-age adults between the ages of 18 to 22 will be dropping dramatically. In the academic community, they call this the population cliff. So it will be even more important for us to raise awareness of food science as an academic study of choice. We have recently published a knowledge base called the Food Science Academic Knowledge Base that provides data on how students are choosing food science as their degree program. Years ago, when we did it, 5 years ago, it was through a family member or a close relative. Today, it is through teachers in our recently published research. So we're using this information to help our academic programs know how to reach younger students. Similar to IFST's Love Food Science resources, we've invested in creating a library of resources for K-12 educators to activate interest in food science careers through exciting experiments and demonstrations in the classroom. We've invested in an annual virtual educator event and partner with educational organizations that have a broad reach to science educators. Just last year, we were able to reach over 16,000 students by equipping teachers with experiments and materials to bring food science to their classrooms. We also cannot underestimate the power of telling your stories and the impact you have through your research and innovations. IFT has a renewed focus on media relations efforts, and in our last fiscal year, we celebrated the mention of IFT and our members and their research in 747 articles worldwide with a potential reach of 6.6 billion people. Thank you all for the work that you do, and I know that because of the work you do, we will continue to exceed this number in this current fiscal year. By raising awareness of the vital work you do every day, we hope to encourage others to join you in solving food system challenges and accept that science and innovation are essential to improving food for everyone. So as you see, we have a lot of things in common with IFST, and the continued collaboration and connection between our organizations will be vital to how we continue to reach that better understanding of the importance of food science. It is to be celebrated. And Sean and I are thrilled to be here in person today to not only celebrate IFST's anniversary, but to also thank our British section volunteers. Our sections bring IFT to their local communities, and they have an impact as well. And so thank you all for your work. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having Sean and I. And with that, we would like to present a gift to IFST, to Tim and Sterling, in recognition. You might want to pull that out, Sean. It's really heavy. Thankfully, we shipped it, and I didn't have to put it in my carry-on. But thank you so much. Congratulations. We look forward to celebrating your next 60 years.
We were good? That's it, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sterling. Thank you all. It's time now for drinks and networking, and I think it's all over there. So help yourselves and have a safe journey home, and see you soon. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you also for the people online. Thank you for joining us remotely from around the world and around the nations. Thank you. Oh, if there's a little game on this this picture here has got 6 families from around the world. Okay. I just want you to tell me which country they are, each, and if you get the 6, you might get a gift. You might get a gift. But, so there's an empty box. No, if you look at these pictures, these are all families. So each picture is a whole family that would live together in that particular country.